This is week 3 reading. We're actually skipping a few chapters, and I believe this is chapter 6. We've missed part of our story, but I'm sure you'll get the gist of it. Before we start reading, our job is to take a look at the vocabulary words. Now, I apologize. I noticed my mistake after I sent those packages home. In the top right corner of your reading this week, we'll have the wrong vocabulary words. You may recognize them from week 1. I've replaced them on my file, and those of you printing out at home will be totally fine. If you picked up your package from the school, I apologize. The vocabulary is wrong. Just worry about the ones that I'm sharing today. Our first word is huge. When I think of huge, I think of a giant, so I'm going to reach up to the sky like an enormous giant. Giant. Palm. Palm of my hand. Palm. Giant. Twig. I think of breaking a twig, so I'm just going to break that twig in half. We go twig. We go palm. We go huge. Schedule. Okay, schedule. I think of someone being really worried about time when I think of schedule. So I'm going to point at that watch. Schedule, twig, palm, huge. The next one's visitor. Let's just give them a little wave, say hi to our visitor. Visitor. Schedule, twig, palm, huge. Material. When I think of material, I think of scissors and cutting that material into shapes. So I'm going to go material, visitor, schedule, twig, palm, huge. Boldly. Boldly. I think of a person speaking boldly. Maybe I'll have a microphone and I'll go boldly. Material, visitor, schedule, twig, palm, huge. Last one is concerned. When I think of concerned, I'm going to stroke my beard. I'm all worried. Concerned. Boldly. Material. Visitor. Schedule. Twig. Palm. And huge. You can review those things one more time at your house, or you can make up your own actions. Let's get to reading. Mrs. Violet Valencia lives next door to us. Violets are purple and Valencia oranges are, well, orange. Purple oranges are just plain unusual, and so is she. She's a big woman, about 6 feet tall, and the biggest hands I've ever seen. They're huge. I bet she could put a full-size basketball in each of her palms and still have room left over. If Mrs. V is, well, like a tree, then my mom is like a twig next to her. I was about 2 years old when I first started hanging out at Miss V's house. Mom and Dad hardly left me with anybody at first, but sometimes their work schedules overlapped, and they needed a third person to help out. Mom said Mrs. V was the first visitor when I first came home from the hospital, the first person to just pick me up like any other baby. A lot of my parents' friends had been too scared to even touch me, but not Mrs. V. Mrs. V wears huge flowing dresses. Must be miles of material in those things, all in crazy color combinations. Bubblegum pink with fire engine red, with peachy sherbet with bright cinnamon, and all the shades of orange and purple, of course. She told me she makes the dresses herself. I guess she'd have to. I've never seen anything like them in any store in the mall or in a hospital either. Mrs. V and Mom used to work together as nurses at the hospital. Mom told me the children there had been crazy about her. She wore the same bright outfits in the preemie ward, the kids' cancer ward, the children's burn unit. Color brings life and hope to these children, she'd announce boldly, daring anybody to disagree. I guess nobody did. I remember sitting on Mrs. V's porch that very first time. Mom and Dad looked concerned, but Mrs. V held me tightly and bounced me on her knees. She must have a hidden microphone under those flowing clothes. She has one of those voices that can make anybody shut up, turn, and listen. If it's Monday, your job is to find out which sentence best describes the main idea. A. Mrs. Violet Valencia lives next door to us. B. A lot of my parents' friends had been scared to even touch me, but not Mrs. V. C. Mrs. V wears huge flowing dresses. Or D. Color brings life and hope to these children. If it's Tuesday, your job is to star one piece of important information, underline one important word or phrase, connect and or support ideas within the text, write a question mark in the areas where questions arise, write an F next to a fact to distinguish between facts and opinions. Finally, write a D next to details that support the topic. Wednesday, your question is, in a world that does not work for her, what seems to cause the biggest frustration? Thursday, how did the author introduce Mrs. V in an interesting way? Think back to how Roald Dahl introduced Willy Wonka, and how did this author introduce Mrs. V? And finally, Friday, summarize the text. Take out the important details, rewrite them in your own words. That's it for reading this week. I'll see you online.